The Atlantic slave trade, a brutal chapter in history, remains shrouded in the shadows, hidden beneath the veneer of sanitized textbooks. The accounts of horror, suffering, and resilience that unfolded across the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean are seldom whispered in the hallowed halls of academia. The classrooms fail to show the magnitude of human lives torn asunder, sold like chattel, and transported across treacherous waters. The cries of anguish, the anguish of separation, and the endurance of enslaved souls resonate through time, unheard. Fueled by greed and racial superiority, the system inflicted immeasurable pain on millions, fracturing families and eradicating cultures. Behind the veils of silence, the legacy of the Atlantic slave trade continues to shape the modern world, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who survived and the collective responsibility to confront the uncomfortable truths behind that's buried within history's depths. The scale of the Atlantic slave trade was an unusual phenomenon in human history, encompassing the forced transportation of millions of centuries from 16th to 19th century, and involved European nations, primarily Portugal, Spain, France, England, and the Netherlands. During the Dark Era, estimates suggest that 12 to 15 million Africans were forcibly taken from their homes and shipped to the Americas as commodities. These numbers, however, only represent those who survived the treacherous journey known as the Middle Passage, as countless others perished due to disease, malnutrition, and inhumane treatment. Before we move on, support us by hitting subscribe and the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. The trade was driven by insatiable demand for labor in the New World colonies, where enslaved Africans were ruthlessly exploited in plantations, mines, and households. The vastness of this trade is difficult to fathom, as it touched the lives of millions of individuals and had far-reaching consequences that continue to reverberate through the present day. The horrors of enslavement during the Atlantic slave trade were unspeakable and deeply traumatizing. Enslaved Africans were subjected to unimaginable cruelty and inhumane treatment. Stripped of their humanity, they were treated as mere commodities, bought and sold like objects. The journey from capture to the slave ships was marked by violence and terror, with individuals forcibly taken from their homes. Once aboard the ships, they were crammed into tight, unsanitary spaces, enduring long and arduous voyages across the treacherous Atlantic Ocean. Many did not even survive the journey, succumbing to disease, malnutrition, and despair. Those who did make it to their destinations faced a lifetime of back-breaking labor, physical abuse, and, constant dehumanization. They were treated as property, their bodies and minds exploited for the profit and comfort of their captors. Families were torn apart, parents separated from children, siblings ripped away, and marriages destroyed. Enslaved individuals were denied basic rights, education, and the ability to exercise agency over their lives. They lived in constant fear, their bodies subjected to whippings, beatings, and other forms of punishment at the hands of those who claimed ownership. The horrors of enslavement left deep scars on the individuals who endured them and the societies that participated in and profited from the trade. The legacy of the dark period in history continues to reverberate today, demanding that we confront the painful truths and work towards a more just and inclusive world. Economic drivers and profits were pivotal in the Atlantic slave trade, shaping history and cementing its enduring legacy. The trade was driven by a complex web of economic motivations that fueled the growth of European economies. European nations, particularly Portugal, Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands, saw immense opportunities for profit in the trafficking of enslaved Africans. The demand for labor in the New World colonies, primarily for producing cash crops such as sugar, tobacco, coffee, and cotton, created a lucrative market for human beings. Plantation owners and merchants sought to maximize, and I mean maximize, their profits by acquiring enslaved Africans at the lowest possible cost and selling them at inflated prices in the Americas. The profitability of the trade led to fierce competition among European powers, with each vying for control of colonies and trade routes. Profits were generated at every trade stage, from the capture and transportation of enslaved Africans to the, sale and exploitation of them in the colonies. The economic gains resulting from the forced labor of enslaved people propelled Europe into an era of economic expansion, financing infrastructure development, industrialization, and technological advancements. The legacy of economic exploitation and profit extraction continues reverberating through contemporary societies, with deep-rooted inequalities and systemic racism persisting as a reminder of the enduring impact of the economic drivers and profits that underpinned the Atlantic slave trade. The impact of the Atlantic slave trade on African societies was profound and far-reaching, leaving scars that still resonate today. The trade involved the forcibly removal of millions of Africans from their homelands and caused significant disruptions to social structures, economies, and cultural practices. The loss of such a vast number of able-bodied individuals, predominantly young men and women, resulted in a severe depletion of human capital within African communities. This loss had devastating consequences as it hindered agricultural productivity, disrupted traditional labor systems, and undermined the overall development of societies. Furthermore, the slave trade perpetuated a culture of violence and warfare, as African kingdoms and tribes engaged in conflicts to capture and sell captives to European traders. The trade also consolidated power among African elites who profited from the business, creating social divisions and power imbalances within societies. Moreover, the trade disrupted family structures and tore apart communities, as individuals were separated from their loved ones and transported across the Atlantic. Resistance and rebellion were integral aspects of the harrowing experience endured by enslaved Africans during the Atlantic slave trade. In the face of unimaginable brutality and oppression, enslaved individuals displayed incredible resilience and an unwavering spirit of resistance. When running from their homes and communities, these courageous souls sought various means to assert their humanity and fight for their freedom. Resistance took on many forms, from individual defiance to organized rebellions. Some enslaved Africans engaged in everyday resistance, such as slowing down work, feigning illness, or subtly subverting their captors' authority. Although rare and extremely risky, organized rebellions posed a significant threat to the system of slavery. Famous uprisings like the Haitian Revolution, led by Toussaint Louverture, demonstrated the immense power and determination of enslaved Africans fighting for their liberation. These acts of resistance challenged slaveholders' authority and inspired hope among the enslaved community, sparking a collective belief that freedom was attainable. The legacy of resistance and rebellion during the Atlantic slave trade is a testament to the indomitable human spirit and a reminder that the fight for justice and liberation can arise even in the darkest times. The legacy of the Atlantic slave trade continues reverberating through the corridors of time, with lasting effects on modern societies. The profound impact of this dark chapter in history can be seen in the persistent racial inequalities that exist today, the systemic bigotry that fills institutions, and the intergenerational trauma passed down through generations. The economic disparities between regions, the cultural erasure faced by African communities, and the deep-rooted prejudices still lingering they're bearing the indelible marks of the transatlantic slave trade. Recognizing and understanding these lasting effects is crucial in pursuing justice, equality, and healing as we strive to build a better future that acknowledges the past and works towards a more inclusive and equitable world.